So last year I did a video that was all the movies I had watched in the first half of the year, so January through June, and I liked to share all of the movies that I had watched, but when I got into actually filming the video, there was just too many movies to make it one video, and so I broke it into different parts. And the way that I had wanted to format that video, I wanted to start with the movies that I liked the least, building up to the movies that I liked the most. And because I had to break it up into multiple videos, then I just had one video where I was talking down on all of these movies that I didn't like. And so that video ended up being kind of a bummer. And then I would talk about movies that I kind of liked but didn't really care about. And then the last video was the movies that I liked the most, and that was the most positive of the three. So what I'm aiming to do is just a recap for every month, including all of the movies that I watch, so not just the horror movies, because believe it or not, I do watch some non-horror movies, mostly at the request of my husband. So in this video, I'll be breaking down the 16 movies that I watched in January of this year, from the ones I liked the least to the ones I liked the most. I'm going off of a video that I have pinned in my TikTok for how I rate movies, because I'm trying to be consistent within my own ranking system. So these are the movies that I rated either a 0.5 or a 1 out of 5. Movies that I rate a 0.5 are, quote, utter garbage, hated it, would not rewatch, would not recommend. Movies that I rate a 1 out of 5 are, quote, didn't hate it, but certainly don't care about it. Unfortunately, there are only two movies in this category, the first being Return to Silent Hill. When a man receives a mysterious letter from his lost love, he is drawn to Silent Hill, a once familiar town now consumed by darkness. I did a full-length video on this as it is a 2026 release, so if you'd like to see me talk about the things that I really did not like about this movie, which is most of the things, you can catch that full video here. I won't say too much else about it because I feel like I've already talked to this movie to death. I was just disappointed in it. It really didn't do anything for me, and I left the theater just kind of already forgetting some of the major elements of the movie. At the bottom of this list, at a 0.5 stars, I don't use this rating very often because it feels very mean, and I tend to try to find the best in the movies that I watch and find some things that I find redeeming about it, but this one just made me angry, and that is Silent Hill Revelation from 2012. When her adoptive father disappears, Sharon De Silva is drawn into a strange and terrifying alternate reality that holds answers to the horrific nightmares that have plagued her since childhood. I feel like I was peer pressured into watching this movie because I purposely had not watched it before because I knew that it was bad, and I have a very specific love for the original movie, but I went ahead and I watched it because I was pressured to do so, and I hate this movie. I really don't say that very often, but I hate this movie. It is terribly acted, it is terribly written, the CGI is goofy, it's hard to look at. I spent a good chunk of this watching experience just cringing into my blanket. I was so uncomfortable watching this. I really don't like this movie. I think had I watched it in 2012 when I was still sort of young in my film literacy, I might have a sense of nostalgia for it that would save it from this rating for me now. But as it stands, the person that I am today watching this in 2026, I could not stand this movie, and I just need to get as far away from it as possible. So next up are movies that I rated either a 2 or a 2.5. When I rate a movie at a 2, I rate it as, and I quote, I respect it as a movie that I watched but don't think of it often. When I rate a movie at a 2.5, I quote, watched it and liked it but forgot about it a week later. The first one in this category is a movie from 2022 titled Beaten to Death. A desperate choice leads Jack down a path that leaves him bruised and beaten as he struggles against man, nature, and his own insanity. For some reason this day I was in the mood to watch something bleak and brutal, and boy, this movie delivered. I wanted to watch it because it's an indie Australian movie. It's very low budget and it has just maybe 4 actors in it. But when I tell you that this movie is exactly what you would think it is based on the title, It is grim, it is bleak, it is nasty, and that's not why I rated it low. I don't mind a bleak, nasty, gross movie when I'm in the mood for it. The plotting in this one was just a little goofy. There just wasn't too much depth to it outside of watching this person suffer for 90 minutes. And, you know, there was just a lot about it that I didn't particularly enjoy. And I think once the shock wears off from how brutal this movie is, it's probably not one that I'll think about all that often. Next up at 2.5, I have The Girl Who Got Away. This one came out a few years ago in 2021. Female serial killer escapes from prison to go after the one victim that got away. This one has a pretty goofy cover photo that makes it seem much more of a horror movie than it actually is. It's really just kind of a simple thriller, and it has some good moments. It has some good acting and some good cinematography, but overall the story is just kind of flat. And it's one that, again, I appreciated as a movie that I watched, but I probably won't think about it too far in the future. Next up is movies that I rated a 3 or a 3.5. I am really guilty about rating the majority of the movies that I watch in this category, so this will have more movies than any of the other categories. So at 3 stars, this is a movie that I liked but wouldn't rewatch. At 3.5 stars, it's a movie that I liked and I might rewatch. So first up, we have Wake Up Dead Man from 2025. This is the 3rd movie in the Knives Out universe. Detective Benoit Blanc teams up with an earnest young priest to investigate a perfectly impossible crime at a small town church with a dark history. This movie is fine. It's competently made. It has some good moments. These kinds of movies feel like sort of a visual escape room. It's kind of a fun experience just to take in the clues and try to figure out what happens. Again, something I appreciate, but not something that I'd be really drawn to rewatch. Then we have Marshmallow from 2025. This was a movie that was on my watch list last year and I just didn't get around to watching it. When a once fabled campfire tale becomes real, a group of campers uncover a profound secret that questions their very existence. This movie is one that I would definitely recommend going in blind to. It is not what I expected it to be, and I liked the general premise and kind of the way that it flips the trope on its head. I feel like it kind of over-explains itself in points. There's a lot of like exposition dumps in this one, and I feel like it's overall like the pacing was just a little clunky for me. One thing that I'll say about this one is that the last 5 minutes of the movie, when I watched it, I was having this thought of like, this seems like it would be a better movie than what I just watched, like maybe just condensing that first part and then making the final like 10 minutes of the movie be its own movie. And this one is actually getting a sequel, so I'm hoping that we'll see that storyline and get a little bit more out of this universe. There are so many horror movies just released constantly that I end up with a long list of movies that I feel like I should have seen by now but haven't, and this is one of them. So Happy Death Day came out in 2017. It is a horror comedy. A college student must relive the day of her murder over and over again in a loop that will only end when she discovers her killer's identity. This was another one that I don't know if I would rewatch. It's a lot of fun. I think if you're looking for something that is goofy and lighthearted as much as a horror movie can be, it's a fun watch. It's like a slumber party horror, I would say. And so in preparation for going to see 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, I did rewatch 28 Days Later, and I watched 28 Years Later for the first time. I did put 28 Years Later in the 3-star category. A group of survivors of the rage virus live on a small island. When one of the group leaves the island on a mission to the mainland, he discovers secrets, wonders, and horrors that have mutated not only the infected, but other survivors. There were some things that I liked about it, but I found overall that Danny Boyle's directorial style didn't work for me in like the modern sense. This movie just felt like it had too much going on and that it could have been condensed and maybe told in like simpler terms, and I really felt this when I watched 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. There just wasn't a lot that I really cared about in the first movie that was so much more fun and more effective in the second movie. Another movie that I watched in theaters this month was Primate. I also rated this one out of 3. A group of friends' tropical vacation turns into a terrifying primal tale of horror and survival. I had lots of thoughts about this movie. Mostly I was super frustrated by some of the really dumb decision making. I enjoyed the movie. It got a response out of me, and if you want to know more about that, you can check out my full review. So there are a couple that in this mid-range that I rated a little bit higher. One of them being 28 Days Later, the first installment in this franchise. 4 weeks after a mysterious, incurable virus spreads throughout the United Kingdom, a handful of survivors tried to find sanctuary. So this one was released in 2002. It is one that I had seen before, but it had been so long since I had seen it that I kind of forgot generally all about it. The main thing that was so interesting to rewatch this is the visual style. I forgot how like shaky and kind of disjointed it is. But I think this movie is relatively iconic. It's a unique way of depicting, I think, a zombie story. Cillian Murphy is absolutely wonderful in this movie, and there's a lot to love about it. It's definitely not like a favorite of mine, but I did enjoy the rewatch. Another non-horror movie in this category is Crank from 2006. Professional assassin Chev Chelios learns his rival has injected him with a poison that will kill him if his heart rate drops. I can't say that this movie has aged particularly well. I did enjoy rewatching it, but there were just some questionable jokes. Also, Glenn Howerton is in this, which is random. I had the same reaction when I rewatched The Strangers. He's just in there. I don't know. It's weird to see him in anything other than It's Always Sunny. And last in this category is Jeffrey's Hell from 2024. In 2023, filmmaker Aaron Irons went missing in a cave in the wilderness area known as Jeffrey's Hell. This documentary explores the truth behind what really happened. So this is kind of like a meta found footage documentary. It is super low budget. I think it's really just filmed by the director with like a camcorder in a cave. But I will say that I really enjoyed this movie just because I love a good claustrophobic stuck story. So I think the combination of the cave and the found footage element really worked for this movie, even though it had a very small budget. The acting was a little iffy at points, but overall there were a lot of moments where I felt the claustrophobia and the panic. And this movie just had a lot of things that really get to me. So the last movies that I'll talk about for this video are movies that I rated out of 4. I didn't rate anything that I saw this month higher than a 4, so I won't talk too much about what it means when I rate something a 4.5 or a 5. When I rate a movie a 4, it's a movie that I have an affection for and that I would recommend. So first up is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. This was a release that came out this year. I did a full video on it. I really enjoyed this movie. As Spike is inducted into Jimmy Crystal's gang on the mainland, Dr. Kelson makes a discovery that could alter the world. Like I said, I think that this is just a much better movie than the first 28 Years Later. It's much more focused and succinct. It is a different director, and I think that Nia DaCosta's style just works more visually for me than Danny Boyle's style. I just really enjoyed the character writing in this movie, and I just had a lot of fun with it. Another 2026 release also ended up in this category, and that is We Bury the Dead. After a catastrophic military disaster, the dead don't just rise, they hunt. Ava searches for her missing husband, but what she finds is much more terrifying. And again, you can find my full review of this movie. I just found it to be very visually striking, a very unique take on a zombie story. And it's very emotional and contemplative, and just one that really takes you on a journey with the main characters. Super Dark Times is actually a rewatch for me. I probably watched this around the time that it came out in 2017. A group of teenagers have been best friends their whole lives, but when a gruesome accident leads to a cover-up, the secret drives a wedge between the two boys and propels them down a rabbit hole of escalating paranoia and violence. The director of this movie is actually a cinematographer most of the time, so as you can imagine, it's a very visually striking movie. I think it also scratches a particular itch that I have for like coming of age stories with a dark twist. Definitely go into this one blind. There are some kind of uncomfortable moments, but overall, I think it's a really wild ride and I enjoy this movie a lot. So the last movie that I'll talk about is another one that I've been meaning to watch forever and just like haven't gotten around to, and that is Titane from 2021. Following a series of unexplained crimes, a father is reunited with the son who has been missing for 10 years. If you've seen this movie, you know that that synopsis doesn't do any justice to what the movie is about. I won't spoil anything, but this is a very interesting, very unique take on body horror. This is a French movie. It's done by the same person who did Raw a few years back. I really enjoyed watching this movie. I found it delightful and gross. I think it's not quite a perfect movie for me because it's much more like slow and contemplative and psychological than I was expecting. But definitely go into this one with as little information as possible and it will be a wild ride. So that is all of the movies that I watched in January of this year. Let me know if this format is better than the compilation of all of the movies I've watched at the 6-month mark. This feels a lot more digestible and easier for me to make and put together. But if you prefer more movies per video or just getting a big dump of all the movies at once, let me know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe to my channel. You can also catch me on TikTok and Instagram where I do short form content. Thanks so much for sticking around and I'll see you in the next one.